You are about to meet one of the great watercolorists of our generation. Please welcome Andy Evansen. Hey, Andy.
Hi, Eric. Thanks very much. That's a nice compliment.
Nice to have you here. Well, you're just so good. You're just such a great artist.
Thank you very much.
So well-deserved compliment. Andy and I were just talking offline that I went camping this weekend, and I set up. We were camping near a river, but we were not right by the river because it floods. And so I walked down to the river. I found this beautiful little waterfall scene. The fall color was really rusty and beautiful. There was all these beautiful cypress trees, and I was like, I had to do a painting of it. And so I got all set up and got my canvas up, my easel up, everything was under control. And then I went in to get my paint brushes, and I realized I had taken them out. I was talking the other day about how you never borrow from your plein air bag, right? You never take paint out of it. You never take brushes out of them.
That's dangerous.
Well, my brushes are sitting right here on my studio easel because there was a brush I wanted. And that's
yeah, that's dangerous. I've done that plenty of times too. I've taken my paint out thinking I need to go through and replenish tubes that are low and then forget to put them back in. And,
yeah. So I painted with sticks and pine branches and my fingers.
Collage.
And it was a hot mess.
Hey, even with brushes, I paint with a hot mess plenty of times. So
I get that. So Andy, what are you going to do for us today?
I'm going to start a painting. I did a webinar recently where I talked about how we're all kind of stuck in our around home through COVID and everything. And it's really given me a chance to explore the area around where I live a lot more. You'd think that I would know by now after living there for 20 years, but my schedule, especially the past 10 years, I mean, I was living out of a suitcase. I was going to hotels and shows and workshops just constantly. So I've actually kind of been enjoying the downtime. So this is a scene kind of local to just a couple miles from my house, and I'll get started on it, show a value study, and talk a little bit about how I use that.
Okay, and you live in the Minneapolis area, is that right?
Well, I'm south of St. Paul, about 20 minutes. Yep.
Okay. All right.
It's amazing how rural it gets. I mean, Minneapolis, St. Paul is a big metro area, but just that 20 minutes, I'm down, and you would never know that there was a big city nearby. It's pretty wide open with crops and cattle. And
yeah, very much the same thing here. You get right out, so you get 20 minutes out of town, and you're in farm country, which is terrific.
It is.
Okay, so we're going to be, why don't we do this? You can go ahead and set up your camera. I'm going to step off, do a couple of announcements, and then we'll be back with you in just a minute.
Great, thanks.
All right. So day number 236. So what that means is we've been here for you every day since essentially coronavirus quarantining began, at least maybe not where you are, but where I am. And the goal was to be here for you, give you something to think about, get you excited about art, and just show up every day. And so we've been now 236 days, most of them in a row. I started taking weekends off about, 2-3 weekends ago. And we are still doing 7 days a week, though. I'm hosting a video for you every day. We've produced over 600 art instruction videos, and we have all the greats, and we were able to present those to you every day. We're giving you samples of one of those videos so you can get inspired and maybe learn to paint for the first time, or maybe it is something about just growing as an artist or looking at different ways of doing things. And so we're trying to be here for you and to keep yourself upbeat and positive. I was reading an article this morning about the things that we need to do. And this was from some psychologist, and it was really remarkable how the things I've been telling you to do for the last 7-8 months have been the same things they're saying, which is basically do something fun for yourself. Make sure that you don't consume yourself by, just becoming a news junkie and getting all worked up and worried about the news with the world events and everything that's happening around with COVID. And of course, keeping your head in a positive place. And so we've been here just trying to do that for you, help you stay in a positive place. And I think that it's working. We're hearing from artists literally all over the world who are are digging this, and so we're going to keep doing it. We don't know how long we'll do it, but we're going to keep doing it as long as we possibly can. It's a lot of fun. So welcome. If you are in the comments section, make sure that you go in there and leave a comment. Every day we're picking out some winners, and we're trying to give away some prizes. And the way to do that is just to leave a comment. Now, we have a prize today. The winner of my book, Make More Money Selling Your Art, is, oh, it says by Eric Rhoads. That's me. It's Jenny Stoker from Ohio. So Jenny, congratulations. We hope this book is helpful for you in getting your art career started. We like to help people. We do all kinds of things. We have a free blog. It's called artmarketing.com. And you can go there, and I blog a lot on art and how you can sell it and different things about that. So you can go there and check that out. Now, we're going to give away a pair of value specs for tomorrow. Value specs are basically glasses that help you see the lights and darks. They basically kind of cut out the colors so that you can kind of see how things should look from a value standpoint. So check those out by get a comment. Let's put a comment in the section, and then we'll grab comments. And please tell us where you're from. If you're from outside of the country or anywhere, we just kind of like to see where you're from. I want to remind you guys that the $15,000 plein air salon, it's actually $30,000 in cash prizes, all cash, and $15,000 to the grand prize winner. 11:30 is when that your entry needs to be in for the next plein air salon competition. So get that in. You can follow me on Eric Rhoads, at Eric Rhoads on Instagram or Facebook. If you haven't, do that. Also, if you have not yet subscribed on YouTube, that would be really helpful for us. We'd appreciate it. And it's actually going to be helpful for you too, because what it does is it helps you to make sure that you get these automatically. They come to you automatically every day, and that'll get you the 3 p.m. videos and these videos. And I think we're at like 59,000 subscribers. We're just about to hit 60. Target is to try to hit 100. We're getting an average of 10,000 people a day watching these, we've figured out. And that's not including Instagram, so it's probably a little bit more than that. So by the time the replays are done, all the platforms, we're being seen by roughly 10,000 people. Thank you for that. Our height, I think we had one go up to 16,000, but our average is 10,000. So that's pretty cool. And we're really appreciative. That's something we love doing. We would like to encourage you to get this free video from us. You can get it in streaming or DVD. It's called 97 Amazing Painting Secrets from the World's Best Artists. We just did a compilation of some of the things out of our video that we thought were helpful. And it's about 2 hours long, and it's yours as our gift to you. Just go to 97tips.com. You get the streaming for free. You get the DVD for free. But if you want it DVD, you have to pay for the shipping, which is like $6 or something like that. So anyway, pick it up. I also want to mention to you that today at 3 p.m., we're going to have the great Neil Patterson on. He's going to do a painting of aspens in the fall, which is really kind of a nice thing this time of year. It's probably a little late for that in Colorado. But that's today at 3 p.m. And this is a classic that Lilidol produced many, many years ago, but still very relevant. And of course, Neil is an OPA master and someone that you want to see. He's going to do this painting, kind of hard to see it on the screen. It's a small postage stamp, and it's from this video. And of course, we'll be giving discounts on that all day long. So check out Neil at 3 p.m. Last but not least, I want to mention to you that we're doing an event called Watercolor Live at the end of January. Chances are we'll be in some form of reduced work schedule or lockdown or something, but maybe not. And even if not, you can certainly watch this on replays. But we have some of the world's finest watercolor artists gathered, including our guest today, Andy Evansen. But you can see that there's just a tremendous number of people. I'm going to go through the names real quickly, just so that you can see who they are. I'm not necessarily going to read every name. I'll make commentary. For instance, Angus was on the other day, and he's from Scotland. So we've got just so many really terrific artists and lots of different styles and approaches to watercolor. And it's a great opportunity to see some of these wonderful approaches and some of these great painters live. It's going to be 4 days long. There's a beginner day of 1 day which is a separate for beginners. And then that'll teach you the basics. And then you can, of course, go and subscribe to or be a part of the other 3 days if you wish to. And we have a 100% money back guarantee. If you watch one day and you don't feel like you got your full money's worth in that one day, we'll refund you 100% of your money, because we want to make sure that you're having a great experience. And we have just a terrific lineup, of course, including Andy Evansen. We're going to get right now back to Andy. Hello, Andy.
Hi, I'm back.
You're back. So I'm curious to see your setup. It looks like you've got a mirror over your table.
Yeah, that's just remnants from seems like eternity ago when I was actually teaching in-person workshops. And that's the difference between teaching watercolor workshops and oil workshops. You know, oil artists can have their painting vertical, you know, on an easel in front of the class, but we're forced to work on a flat surface. And, you know, without having people crowding around the table, this way they can sit in a viewing area in front of me and see what I'm doing up in the demonstration mirror.
Kind of like a cooking show.
Exactly. People always bring that up, the cooking show thing. Yeah.
Well, I think we all saw it at the home fair or something, you know, when we go to home shows, and they were like, it slices, it dices.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll be doing some slicing and dicing myself here today. So.
All right. Terrific. Well, so what camera do you want me to bring in? Do you want me to bring on the
yep, switch over to Laura's if you can. There we go.
All right. So I'm gonna drop mine out, and we'll put this one on, and we can see you and hear you, and you can get started.
Okay, I was gonna ask, can you hear me okay? Because I have my laptop fairly close.
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Okay, perfect. All right, so welcome everyone. This is going to be you know, a quick 45 minutes. But I'll make good progress on a painting doing this. I chose something purposely that wouldn't take a lot of drawing and a lot of stages, so I can get pretty close for you. But you know, you're definitely going to want to tune into the watercolor live event, where we're all going to be able to show, you know, the whole process and much more involved. But I'll touch on things here pretty quickly. I'm just going to show a couple examples of the kind of things that I do in my workshops here. The value study to color lessons and how I break it down. You know, watercolor is basically the traditional approach to watercolor is light to dark. And I try and keep things as much as I can to 3 overall general stages: the lights, the middle values, and the darks. And so that's what you see represented in my value study. The white paper would be representative of a light color wash. Okay, so I just leave it white paper on the value study, but on my color painting, I have to get rid of most of that white paper and tone in usually the sky as part of the light wash, a lot of the flat surfaces and areas that are being hit by sunlight and whatnot.
Are you using a neutral color there? It looks a little blue?
Yep, it is. It's a Payne's Gray, and the Winsor Newton Payne's Gray that I use is a little bit of a cool color. Payne's Gray is one of those colors where every manufacturer has a different idea or a different formula, it seems like. But I like the Winsor Newton one just because it's a cool color. So I have it in my palette right up here next to my ultramarine blue and cobalt blue. It's just basically a darker, cool color for me. And it works perfect for these value studies.
Do you want to quickly just do a kind of a quick what your colors are, because people will be asking?
Yeah, sure. So Payne's Gray is here, French Ultramarine, Cobalt Blue, Cerulean Blue, Cobalt Turquoise, and then over here I have Neutral Tint, and that's my other dark color. And the difference between the neutral tint and the Payne's Gray is my neutral tint is kind of a warm color. It's got a little bit of a violety hue to it, and that's why I have it over here by my warmer colors, so I can keep they look very similar in the palette, but as soon as you start mixing puddles, it's pretty obvious that they're quite a bit different.
So cools on top, warmers on the side?
Yeah, so these are kind of the earth tones: neutral tint, burnt sienna, raw sienna, and quinacridone gold. And then down along the bottom here, just kind of warmer accent colors: cadmium lemon, alizarin crimson. This is a color called opera pink. I don't use it that much. It's still a little bit of a fugitive color, but it's an impossible color to mix if you want a nice bright pink, like on a shirt or something. So I have it there just in case I need a little bit of it. So every once in a while I'll use it in sunset mixes too. And this is cadmium red light, and then this is lavender. This is made by Holbein. This is one of the few colors that I have that's not Winsor Newton. This is Holbein, so is my raw sienna, and it's got a little white in it. This lavender does, so I kind of like it in a lot of my sky mixtures. It's got a little opacity to it, and it helps to take the edge off.
And I noticed you don't have a white on your palette.
No, I prefer to use the white of the paper if I need a white, and then I also have white gouache, a tube of white gouache. So if I have a small mistake, if I miss a little highlight or something, I'll come in with gouache and use that. But that's watercolor. You're working with white paper, so I just try and plan ahead as much as I can if I want something white in the end. So on here I wanted some white, really glaring pavement behind the ladies, little touches of white in her hair maybe, and so I'll plan ahead for those areas and leave them white paper.
One of the things we should probably talk about is that you're a plein air artist. You go outdoors and paint a lot. I am, especially after this experience this weekend, I'm starting to take watercolor out with me during those times when I just don't feel like taking the whole paint bag with all the heavy oils and everything.
Sure.
Do you want to just kind of talk about plein air painting and why that's been important for you?
Oh yeah, thanks for asking. So recently, on one of my trips to China, we were asked to put together a PowerPoint and just kind of talk about whatever. He left it up to us what we wanted to talk about, and I decided to talk about kind of the progression of my career, starting off as a medical illustrator, and then showing some of my earlier watercolors and kind of how my process has changed. And one of the biggest jumps that I saw was when I first started in watercolor, I was painting almost strictly from reference photographs, and the colors in my earlier paintings were just were not good. I was seeing what the camera was seeing and not what your eye sees. And so it was amazing once I started getting outdoors and painting, despite all the struggles involved with it, it made a huge difference in my work. And I've gotten to the point now where, I live in Minnesota, and we were talking before this started, we've already had 3 or 4 snowfalls, it's not even Thanksgiving yet. So plein air season ends for me pretty early, and it starts pretty late in the spring also. So I am kind of forced to work from reference photographs quite a bit in the studio, but now, that time that I spent outside, I've learned to compensate for the shortcomings of the camera, and kind of make my colors a little bit more natural. I used to use, store-bought greens and oranges, those secondary, tertiary colors. And I don't even bother with that anymore. I mix them all. They're much more natural. If I stick to when I went through my palette, basically all you saw were versions of blue, yellow, and red, on my palette. So I think that, again, that experience of getting outside, it's also changed a little bit the subjects that I choose. I was incorporating too much in my paintings, and by getting outside, your time is so limited. You can't tackle these grand vistas, especially with watercolor, when you're trying to work with wet edges and everything before the paper dries. So I just started to learn how to zoom in, and I think that's a big part of composition too, that I talk to my students in my workshops about. They bring photos, and they're falling into the same trap that I did. They're asking, they'll show me all these photos, and I'm trying to help them choose one to work on in the workshop. And more often than not, I'm taking one of their photos. I'm saying, that's a nice photo, but look what happens when I cover up, 3/4 of it. Look at this little corner.
Yeah.
Look how strong a painting that would be. And it's really eye-opening for them to see that. So it's definitely made a difference.
Yeah. All right. Terrific. All right. I'm going to go back to the other camera now.
Back to the overhead. Okay, so, and this is kind of, I get asked a lot too, do I do value studies when I'm outside working plein air? Oftentimes I won't if it doesn't involve a whole lot of drawing. For a scene like this, when I squint down at it, it's pretty obvious where the lights are, where the middle values are, and where the big dark shapes are. So I wouldn't necessarily have to do a value study of this scene on location. But if I did, this is usually how I would end it. The darks are typically pretty obvious in a painting when I'm looking at the dark shapes. If you're doing a busy street scene, a lot of times the darks are the figures, the windows, the car tires, and that kind of thing. They're not going to change that much. But this getting myself this big start through a value study, my first light wash, and then taking all this visual information throughout the scene and finding a way to simplify it and connect it into a better composition. That's the most important part. So if I do a value study plein air, this is usually where it stops. I won't continue on and put on the little darks, you know. And again, the darks are usually smaller areas, the shadows and fence posts, and just a few small things that are typically pretty obvious. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this. Now, when I'm doing my color painting here, I've already got it sketched out a little bit, but I use both the value study and the reference photograph to make my decisions on color choices and what I'm putting where. And this first wash that I'm going to put on, I'm going to wet my paper. I like a nice loose wet start to everything, and from there on, as the paper dries, I don't really re-wet the paper that often. I like to just kind of keep working on it, and as it dries, I'm using more dry brush marks for darker trees and texture and smaller details anyways. So I just kind of keep working on it as it's drying, but I want that first wash to stay nice and loose. So I look at the areas that I left white paper on my value study. I look at the reference photo for the color that's going to need to be there later, and that's all I do in my first wash. So I'm going to go ahead and wet both sides of my paper here. I like to wet both sides. It keeps it a little flatter, and it also gives me a little bit extra time to work on it before it's totally dry. Now, for the purposes of this demonstration, I'll probably pull out a hair dryer at some point and dry it just a little bit, as much as I hate to do that. I much prefer that my paintings dry naturally on their own while I'm working on it, but when I'm doing the demonstration under the gun, I've got to speed things up a little bit, so I'll be doing that before I can get into a lot of my middle value shapes. So the back is wet, and you can kind of see already how it's starting to curl up when I wet the back, because when you're wetting the paper, it absorbs the water and expands. So that now I'd be working on a curled surface, and the opposite would happen if I was just wetting the front. I'd be working on a surface like this, okay, as the front tries to expand. So not only does it allow me to work wet into wet a little bit longer, but it also helps keep my paper down flat on my surface. And then this way, I don't have to tape it down or staple it down. I usually don't like to do that much anyways. I'm picking my paper up once in a while and letting the colors run down and merge. I'll turn it sideways or upside down to make a certain kind of mark. And it's important that I wet it with a sponge too, I should say, because a sponge allows me to squeeze a lot of that water out. Sometimes when I have students that are wetting their paper first, they're putting way too much water on at the beginning. So then it takes forever to dry. So I'm just trying to get it damp. And a sponge, well, like I said, when I can squeeze it out a little bit, that really helps me do that. Okay, paper's damp. So again, looking at my value study and the reference photograph, I need that nice warm glow of the sunset up here. In this area, I'm going to need some violets and that little, some of those nice bright orange bits on the side of the road in my first wash. I'm going to have to get this glare, this cool glare in the road, and some of the patches of snow on the side. I'm not going to put that mailbox in. I took that one out and just kind of leave it to a big bank of trees. So that's all I'm looking at on this first wash for the colors that I need. I'm going to go ahead and start with some raw sienna.
You want to talk about what you're using for a brush?
This is a big, I usually start with mop brushes. You know, these squirrel mops, they have the black hairs on them. This one's made by Silver. It's the black velvet line of watercolor brushes. They're inexpensive because they're not, there's a blend of synthetic in there too. So I usually recommend these to my students when they get started, because these big natural brushes can get quite spendy. But these Silver ones, the black velvet brand, they're not too bad. And then as I work my way down to the middle value stages, I usually stay with the natural brushes. But I'll use like a size 14 or 12 sable. And then this is a Chinese brush, like a hog's hair or ox hair brush that I'll use for those middle value washes. And then as I get down towards the end, I tend to move towards even smaller brushes and synthetic, because I'm not worried about covering a large area typically with my dark. Now in this case, I am going to have kind of a large dark area, but typically they're smaller shapes. where I'm drawing them more and I want a little bit more control, so I'll use a synthetic brush.
Okay, great.
Now this light wash, this throws a lot of people off too, because watercolors, we all know, phase as it dries, and it lightens up quite a bit. And it's proportional to how much water you're putting in these washes, okay? No wash has more water involved with it than this first wash that you're putting on your paper. Not only are my puddles more wet than later washes, but my paper is also wet, so it's got a lot of drying to do. And you kind of have to compensate for that when you're putting this on, realizing that I can't put this on so it looks right right now. I always tell my students, if it looks right when you put it on, it's wrong. Because you have to allow for how much that's going to lighten as it fades and dries. I'm going to slowly start introducing a little bit of this lavender up at the top here too, keeping it warmer down at the bottom and cooler up at the top, just slightly. Overall, it's still a warm glow, but I'm going to slowly get to that violet as I go up here and merge it down into the warms that I just put on. So again, it's probably going to look a little bit too dark when I first put it on, but I'm just compensating for the fact that it's going to lighten up quite a bit. And that little bit of pink that I put in is a good transitional color, so you're not getting green in there. Also, if I had to go to some cerulean blue or something in there, I usually would do a little bit of a transitional area where I'm putting in some alizarin crimson or lavender or something in that wash anyways. Okay, so if you look at my value study, I've got this area filled in now with that color that I need. Now I need to go back and start filling in these areas of the road and the lights on the those warm lights that you're seeing, the glow on some of the plants and stuff, shrubs alongside the road, and start getting that snow color in there. I'll switch to a little smaller brush. I have a paper towel in my hand a lot too, just to make sure I'm able to control the amount of moisture in my brush. I wipe it on the sponge and the paper towel as I go. Don't want to get things too wet. So now I'm mixing some blue with the lavender, and I'm going to start getting some of these snow colors in here in the distance. And I've got so much of that yellow on there that's going to start bleeding down into here too. So that'll start introducing some of that glow into the landscape anyways as I'm painting this. I'm trying to leave a little dot of light by that mailbox. It's not that big a deal. That's such a small thing. That's where I would come in with gouache if I needed to later. Okay, so I've got that cool snow in the distance way back on the road. I'm going to start getting some of that warmer glow into here. There's that nice warm glow on the road right on the hill there. So I'm just going to drop that in. And you can start to see how everything is just fuzzing. Again, I'm not worried about detail at this stage. Just getting it blocked in. There's even a nice warm glow on the edge of this thing. So now you need to get a little bit more intense. I'm going to use some quinacridone gold and cadmium red to get those bright oranges along the roadside. Just a little bit of those colors in here. I could do a little bit of that in the middle value wash, but I'm thinking I'm going to have to paint around it when I put this glow on there, and I just as soon let it fuzz right now with everything else. And there's some over here on this side of the road too. All right, those little glows. So I've got this white light area filled in, that filled in, the little spots of down here. Now I'm basically just getting that cool reflected snow color coming down, so I can get this off my palette. One more time, the value study. Okay, sky is filled in. This area I just filled in. Now I'm down to this area. You have to realize how much of this is going to get covered up later on with middle values and dark shapes, okay? So I don't have to start getting these colors in here just yet. I'm more worried about the spots that were left white in the value study. Back to a big brush now. I want to keep that glare on the road fairly light where the ice is, and then I'll get a little bit darker off to the sides where the snow is. This isn't quite white paper, but it's a lot lighter than the snow on the edges. Okay, so I've got that area filled in. Now I need to deepen it some as I go to the fringes. I'm throwing some lavender in, maybe a little bit of that neutral tint. Kind of take the edge off. It doesn't need to be too blue. Goes back to what I was saying about getting more natural looking colors in my paintings. Very, very rarely am I grabbing a color off my palette and just painting with it. They're always getting mixed in with other stuff on my palette. Okay, I've got that glow left behind there. That's all going to get covered up later. Don't worry about it. This, I need to get the snow on this bank up here. Okay, I've got that little glow. Now I can come in and I'm going to just put whatever up here. Again, it's not going to matter too much because so much of it's going to get covered up. I'm throwing some cobalt turquoise and alizarin crimson in here. The direction of my brush strokes matters. Even at this stage, I'm not doing texture or anything, but I'm making sure I'm already kind of getting that forced perspective in the scene. If I do leave any white marks or anything, I want that to show through. And then up here, I'm just going to start filling this in a little bit. Again, most of this is going to get covered up later. It's definitely warmer as it gets to the sun over on the other side, so I'm going to start introducing some warmth as I work my way over towards my middle values. Down in this area, it's a lot warmer. A little smaller brush. The tree is going to come all the way out to here, so I'm just kind of getting this glow in right now. Not doing the edge of the tree just yet. But quinacridone gold is a good color to have on your palette for this time of day. It's such an intense warm. It's awfully difficult to get this with just raw sienna or something.
You sure make this look easy.
No, it's not. But I've been doing it for a long time. So I'm just throwing a little bit of warmer colors on the edge of this. When I paint trees in my paintings, and this is something that I picked up by really kind of studying some of my idols, the British watercolor artist, Trevor Chamberlain in particular, with all of his soft edges. I started to notice that even if the tree is going to be darker later, in his earlier washes, he would drop in a little bit of this glow on the edge of it, okay? So that it's not just one harsh shape at the edge of the darker shape later. You're gonna have a little bit of that glow on the edges of it because it's a shape that's alive in the scene. It's not a building, a hard edge building. This is gonna let it breathe a little bit by putting some of this glow where the edge of it's gonna be. And hopefully some of that will still be there evident later when I'm coming back in. But this is dangerous, okay? I painted this, what, 5-10 minutes ago. It's had a chance to dry. When I'm coming back in here now with this, I have to make sure that I'm using a little bit more paint and a little less water. Otherwise, that's when you get the balloons and the backgrounds, okay? So it's fuzzing soft, but it's not creating a bloom because I have that paper towel in my hand. I'm controlling the amount of moisture in the brush, and I'm also using a little bit more paint and a little less water as I come in here. So I'm using the the moisture on the painting surface to soften the edges, not in my brush. Okay, so that's the first light wash as I just kind of cover the white of the paper. Excuse me. One more time with the value study. So I've got this area filled in with that beautiful soft glow of the sunset, lavender down to the pinks and the warm glow. I've got this area filled in with some of the snow on the distant road, some of the warm colors along the side of the road for some of those shrubs. So I've got that area filled in. I've got this area filled in with the color of the snow later. So now when I paint around this later, when I put this gray color of the dirt road and the darker trees above it, I'll just paint around this, and instead of having white paper, I've got that color. Okay, so that's all this wash is for, and that's why I do the value study, because it's informing my decisions, what I put on these earlier washes, knowing that, you know, it's just basically, I'm going to be negatively painting around this later on, and I need something there besides the white paper. I've got a little bit brighter down here for the glare on the ice on the road, a little bit darker down here where that snow is going to be. Okay, so even though I'm not painting this shape yet, it's still informing my decisions right away from the lighter wash. Okay, now I have to apologize because I need to do a quick little hair dryer blow on here. I just needed a little bit drier so I can make some progress. Do you want me to turn my speaker all the way down so you don't have to hear that for a second?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'll just mute you, and then people can kind of watch what you're doing, and I'll give a little play-by-play here. All right. So what Andy is about to do, I should do football. Andy's going to plug in his hair dryer, and then he's going to be going on and drying this so he can speed up. You can see I'll put him on screen here. You can show him. He's air blowing the piece, and be curious how long it takes, but you can see it from this angle, or you can see it from this angle. You can see the hairdryer going in there. He's going into very specific spots. I think the goal is nod if the goal is to get it completely dry. I don't know if he can hear me. All right. So Andy's going to be part of Watercolor Live, and we're very excited about that. He'll be teaching a full process on Watercolor Live, and that's coming up in January. So, okay, looks like he's air drying the back now. And I got people watching from all over the world. I see Scotland, Glasgow, welcome. I saw Ireland earlier. Let's see, it looks like he's done with the hair dryer.
Yes, thank you.
Try to do play-by-play.
You're a close pro. I think that worked out okay. All right, so it's still just slightly damp. I didn't get it to be bone dry, but that'll allow me to go in and start doing this middle value shape. Now, some of these areas I kind of wanted to be a little bit softer. When I go to this middle value shape on my color paintings, I'll usually start in the background. Because if that fuzzes a little bit, that helps the illusion of atmosphere anyways, and I'll avoid, I'll get to this part probably last because I want some of those harder edges and the dry brush strokes around that icy patch in the road, okay? So I'm going to, start in the background area here and just start working my way down forward.
Somebody asked why you don't tape your paper down.
Just because there's a lot of times when, I want to pick it up, and if I see streaks in my first wash, I'll pick it up and hold it vertically back and forth, let them tilt down some, to get rid of it. When I'm putting in power lines on my painting, because they swoop down, they kind of sag down, I like to put them in with my paper upside down because that's the natural arcing motion of your arm. So I'm always picking it up and turning around anyways. I don't bother.
You have viewers, Andy, from I see one from India, from Bangladesh. I mentioned earlier Scotland, Ireland. So I'll mention them from time to time. You're a popular guy.
I love it. Okay.
There's a big watercolor community in in India, I understand.
Yeah, I have a lot of great friends. So many good painters over there in India that really embrace watercolor, and I follow them on Instagram. They follow me. Yeah, I'm hoping to take a trip there someday.
Yeah, I'll go with you.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
I'm going to start by mixing this kind of warm violet in the background for those trees. And I'll make a mark on my paper, and if it looks like it hasn't dried enough, I'll hold off and give it just a little bit more time to dry. But it should be fine now where I can come in and just start painting those. Because like I said, that distant area, if it fuzzes a little bit, that's probably all the better anyways.
Normally, though, you'd wait till it's completely dry?
No, I kind of keep working on things. I let it dry naturally, so I'll maybe go walk away from it for 10 minutes and come back and see how it is. It's rare in the studio that I'm using a hair dryer. But people ask me a lot when I post paintings, how do you get to look granulated like that? And some of it is the paper sometimes, but I think a lot of it is I just let those washes dry naturally most of the time. And the pigments are all different. You know, if I have a mixture of violet with cerulean blue and alizarin crimson and some cobalt blue or something, cerulean's heavier. They kind of start in that wash. It might look uniform as a wash on your palette, but then as it's drying, they start to separate out a little bit and granulate. So I try and take advantage of that by letting the washes dry naturally.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to start by putting in those treetops. It's a little warmer at the tops of those trees because that's where the sun is hitting it, breaking through, and then I'll switch to more of a violet color down below. And it looks like it's not fuzzing too much. I should be okay to keep going. All right, so now I'm going to get the bottoms of them and start showing the tops of the snow in the distance on that field. I'm going to continue this right over into this darker area. That's going to get covered up later anyways, that little transition. Get these trees coming over here to the left. I'll try and keep an eye on the clock here, Eric, for you, but you let me know if I'm getting close.
Yeah, I'll let you know. Somebody asked a question, are you painting on hot pressed paper?
No, this is it's actually rough, Saunders rough, but it definitely has a cold press surface to it. It doesn't feel rough. The Saunders paper is a lot softer paper, so I use their rough 140-pound paper, and it's got a lot of nice, just enough tooth to it to allow me to break up some of these shapes. I'm getting a little bit of the texture in the rows of the field here, a little bit in the road, joining that in over here too. So just a nice connected shape. I'm looking, you can't see my value study all the time, but I'm trying to paint this connected shape. And only now I'm going to be changing colors, obviously, as I need to. But I'm still trying to stick to that game plan if I can. There's that distant road. And this is going to be covered up with a darker tree later. More of that field back here. All right, now I'm going to get into the larger part of the road and start, hopefully I can show that ice patch for you too once that's done. I want to get a little bit more texture in here to show the sweep of the road. That's going to be a field of snow back there. All right, so now I need to get this lower area and start connecting that and show off my patch of ice on the road. So I'll switch to a little bigger brush here. Got some cerulean blue, some cobalt blue, some neutral tints. I just kind of, it's rare. I have no formulas for anything that I put in. Every sky is different. Every scene has a little bit of a different look to it. So I just reach and grab colors until I get something that looks close to right, and then I start painting with it. But you know, people think that that's mud, but it's not mud. It's just it's a neutralized color. Mud comes from when if I was going to start working on this before it had a chance to dry, and I'm scrubbing at it and I'm disturbing previous washes and they're mixing with what I put on the paper, that's how you get mud. Okay, it's different. This is just neutralized color.
Okay. Hello from Kazakhstan.
Wow.
From
Hello.
let's see here. We
Thanks
have
for joining.
Israel.
Wow.
Somebody's written in Arabic, but I can't read what they wrote. New Zealand.
That's so awesome.
You're a popular guy.
Thank you for joining us. That's so good. It's got to be, I have no idea what time it would be there, but wow.
We're seeing an average day of over 10,000 viewers a day.
Wow.
And we're like 40 countries. Brazil just chimed in. Italy. Of course, all these people across America and Canada as well. So
yeah, that's what I would have expected mostly. It's nice to see the international flavor chiming in.
It's really interesting to see how that snow is really popping now, because when you first laid it down, I thought, gee, that's too dark for snow.
Yeah.
Once you get that dark contrast in there, what a difference.
Yeah. No, it's had a chance to dry a bit, and so that lightened it up some, and now I'm getting the middle value around it, so that's helping to pop it out more. Yeah, that's something that throws people up, and it's so difficult on this first wash because you have nothing to compare to but the white of the paper. So everything you put on looks too dark. And again, you have to remember how much it's going to dry and fade and lighten up. All right, see if I can do a halfway decent job of creating this glare here. I'm going to do some quick dry brush strokes and try and leave some behind. I might have to actually come in with some darker stuff later too, but so this kind of this hog's hair Chinese bristle brush, it's good for dry brushing. I don't have a lot of control on the marks, and it doesn't hold as much water as like a sable brush would.
Where do you find those?
China. I got this in an art store when I was shopping with a friend on one of our trips there. But I'm sure you can go on Amazon and get, it's similar to the calligraphy brushes. It's so lightweight. I love the long handle. And again, I like that freedom that I get from these brush marks, keep me from controlling it too much.
Welcome, Iceland. Welcome, Netherlands. France, Mexico.
Awesome.
Arkansas. No, that's not a foreign country.
Yeah, Jason Sakran's chiming in. All right, and then most of this road over here is going to be darker. I can leave a little bit of that light behind, obviously, but I want to keep most of the light on the glare of the ice, so I don't want to leave too much of this open over here. And then again, I can paint around the snow on this side. Get that nice little glow right where it's hitting the driveway coming in the edge, so I can preserve that earlier color that I put down.
Thailand. Wow.
Jeez.
Ireland.
That's so fun.
Switzerland. Man, they're just coming in.
Love it.
Another Ireland.
Okay, I've got that little patch of snow here now. All right, so what's really going to help this pop is going to be the darks, obviously. I know we're starting to get a little bit closer to go time, so I'm going to go ahead and start getting this big, massive trees in right now, too.
Brazil. We got about 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay.
And I would normally let you run long, but I unfortunately have a meeting I have to go to.
Oh, that's fine. I knew what I was getting into. And they can tune in for Watercolor Live and get much more involved.
Oh, yeah. You'll be able to go a lot more depth there.
Yep. So it's much cooler down here in this area of the trees, and then it's warming up as it gets closer to the sun, obviously. So I'm starting with a lot of cool blues and stuff in here, and then I'll slowly start warming it up with some burnt sienna as I work my way over towards the sun.
Do you have any recommendations for people on how they can really start seeing cools and warms? Because I know when I first started painting, it was hard to tell the difference.
Yeah, it is. Boy, that's a good question. I don't know. I've always kind of trusted my eyes. I do get asked that question a lot. How do you know? Are you purposely trying to get a balance between cools and warms and all that kind of stuff? But I know it's not a very good answer, but I literally just kind of trust my eyes. And when I'm squinting down, I think a big part of it is squinting and stop, painting what you think you see. Every time I squint my eyes and it blocks out detail, I learn to see value and color shifts much more accurately than if I'm looking at it with my eyes wide open and going off of my preconceived notions of what something should be.
Right.
Okay, so I'm getting that dark in the corner. I'll probably have to darken it up even more later, but I'm going to start getting into, now I'm going to start warming it up slightly as I go. I'm going to start introducing some raw sienna into this and burnt sienna, and then back to the oranges and stuff too, as it gets closer to that side of the bunch of trees here. And again, that earlier low wash that I put in is important, because now as I'm painting this, if I break it up a little bit, I'm going to have little touches of orange glow showing through and not white paper.
Right.
It's still important to cover that, even though I knew I was going to cover up most of it later.
Okay. Hello, Malta. Hello, Poland. Yes, we are live. You're watching live. A lot of people watch the replays later, though.
Oh, yeah.
And Andy will post the final painting.
Sure.
Once if we don't get it done, he'll post the final one.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Well, I really love how that warm glow is showing through now.
Yeah, just those few little touches down there. And I'm switching to even more warm colors, like I said, as I work my way to the left here now. And hopefully leave a little bit of that touch of glow at the very fringe of the tree up above, where it was in the light to make it look more soft edged. Another nice thing about these hogs hair brushes, they're great for painting that foliage where you don't want to control it too much. I just kind of push it around on my paper and let the brush do the work and keep it a little bit more random. Trees are so random, the more you try and paint their actual shape, the worse they get.
So true.
Okay, keep some of that glow down here, hitting a couple of branches. Get that nice warm right at the side of the road here.
Oh, that really is beautiful.
Thanks. But this is the point of the value study, seeing big shapes. This is where you're really taking advantage of watercolor. It's such a loose medium to paint with, obviously with all the water and pigment blending. So grab a big brush, find big shapes to paint. I can come in here and work on this for hours if I want to do putting in tree branches and stuff, but I try not to. Obviously, I try and stop while I'm ahead. But just to start loose like this, it puts you on the right path. And obviously help to pop the little mailbox down here too. Try and leave in that glow if I can. I'm gonna get a little bit darker on the side of the road here. How am I doing? Just another minute or two?
I'm giving you about 3 minutes.
Okay, thanks. I want to get a little bit of darker texture on the side of the road here. Kind of help pop that light out. Give it a little variety. It's a little flat right now, and if I can put this in wet into wet, but again, a much thicker paint. I'm not coming in here with a lot of water on my brush because I don't want it to bloom. Mostly just paint on a synthetic brush.
Question was, how do you manage your color blooms or patchy color spots, sir? That's from India.
They are all so good about saying sir. But I touched on that before. It's all about making sure if I'm working into an area that hasn't had a chance to dry, I have to make sure that I'm controlling the amount of moisture on my brush. I have a paper towel in my hand a lot of times. Make sure you're using more paint in your mixtures and less water. That will help you to avoid getting all those cursed blooms in your paintings.
Yeah, a lot of other questions were answered earlier. In case you tuned in late, you can always watch the replay on wherever you're watching, and you can subscribe on YouTube at Streamline Art Video. Nice. And you'll find all the replays from 236 days there, including the 3 p.m. videos we're doing of art instruction videos at 3 and at noon, so noon Eastern. Oh, that's really beautiful.
Thanks. Get that. I mean, it was all about the star of the show for me when I took this was the patch of ice, okay, on the road. Yes, there's beautiful stuff happening up here with the glow of the sunset and all that, but I wanted to make sure that that's kind of popping out nicely with some contrast. So as I'm working on here, a lot of my decisions are going to start being made about, is that patch of ice obvious on the road? And it is now that I put some of those darks in.
Someone asked, do you ever remove watercolor from the paper?
I lift out some small shapes once in a while. If I want a soft, light shape instead of using gouache with it or painting around it, leaving a hard edge, I'll paint through it, and then I'll take a small synthetic brush and lift it. That's a good way to get again, kind of a lighter, softer, light shape. Say if I wanted the light side of a power pole here or something, I could do it that way. I'm going to go ahead and put this dark tree in and see, so you can see a little bit of contrast.
Makes a huge difference already.
Yeah, right. Now look how light those darks, or that first wash looks now that I've started to put some actual darks on here. You really start to see the contrast and the glow. But that's the hard thing about watercolor. You have to trust the process and realize that so much of the painting comes together at the end when you have a chance to put your dark detail shapes in. So I'm losing detail all the time, and then at the end is where it all kind of pops. A little bit of that glow up on the top here too. Some tree branches, I can connect them with smaller branches later. Try and make it look natural as you can when you're painting. All right, but that really helps with the glow. Like I was saying, now I'll get into here. I know we're gonna have to pause pretty quickly here, but I'm gonna start putting some of the darks in this shadow area and let them soft merge too. So you just cut me off when you have to, Eric.
All right. Well, I'll just do that in a minute. Yeah, I'll tell you, it really pops when you get those darks in there.
Yep.
And you always try to keep your darkest dark all the way in the front.
Yeah, typically you don't want to start introducing, the darks way in the distance. And that's another thing that the camera will do. The camera has a tendency to show some of those darks way back in the, miles away, but I'm trying to come up with a better composition and create the illusion of depth on a small little piece of paper by using cool colors, warm colors, contrast, all that kind of stuff.
Hello from Bombay, India. Hello, Bombay.
Nice.
Hello, Israel, another Israel.
Wow.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Russia. Hello from Russia.
Nice.
All right. Where in Russia? We want to know. I'm going over to Russia. I'm taking a group of artists over there in September. If we're allowed.
I still want to do that trip. Oh, man. Russia would be amazing.
We're going to go into the small villages as well as touring and painting in St. Petersburg and Moscow.
Oh, that's amazing.
We have one of the Russian masters, Nikolai Dubovik, is going to join us. And we'll probably visit with some others while we're there as well.
How many opportunities do you get to do that? Good Lord.
That's the only time I'm going to do this trip. I think it was too hard to put it together.
Yeah, I don't envy you for that, for sure.
I have only 46 slots, and I have 350 have applied for them so far.
Wow. Congratulations. Great.
And I'm talking to the travel people, seeing if there's any possible way we can get another hotel or something so we can get some more people in.
That's got to become a logistical nightmare for you, though, the more people that start signing up.
Well, it makes me work. I don't want to work. I want to paint.
Exactly. Okay. All right. Darts down there.
All right. I think I'm gonna have to pull you off.
Okay.
I'm gonna put your other camera on.
Okay.
All right. Well, Andy, this has been absolutely terrific. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure.
We learned a lot, and I hope that you'll post the final in the comments tonight sometime, or maybe tomorrow, because a lot of people will be tuning in tonight.
Okay.
And that's when we get the majority of our views now that people are back to work. But
so post it in the comments. So I go back to just go back.
Just go to this broadcast in Facebook or YouTube or something, and then go into the comments and post.
Okay.
In there. or you can send it to me and I'll post it.
Okay,
All
perfect.
right. Our guest today, Andy Evansen. Thank you, Andy.
My pleasure. Thanks everyone for watching.
Andy is going to be on Watercolor Live, where we have some of the top masters in the world for 4 days teaching watercolor in late January, including Andy Evansen, including Joe Zbukvich. Well, I'll just tell you, Daniel Marshall, Andy Evansen, Thomas Schaller, Suni Warren, Stephen Zhang, Matthew Bird, Pablo Rubin from Spain, who was on the other day, Mario Robinson, Lauren McCracken, Joseph Zbukvich, Keiko Tanabe, John Selamin, Gene Peterson, Kim Machinko, Brenda Swenson, Michael Holter, Angus McEwen, I always get his name wrong, and Linda Daly Baker. And that's going to be at watercolorlive.com. Make sure you check that out, because it's going to be a worldwide event. We're already about almost 600 people signed up, and it's not till January. So you want to be sure to get one of the tickets while you can. And you can save $100 if you get registered before December 6th. So make sure you do that at watercolorlive.com. Be sure to remember, 3 p.m. today, we have a free video sample for you. Neil Patterson painting aspens. That's on YouTube and Facebook. Same place you're watching this, at 3 p.m. Today, and that's Eastern time. We're here for you every day. This is day number 236. Reminder to put a comment in the comments section. We're going to have a pair of value specs to give away for tomorrow. Thanks again to Andy Evansen. I'm Eric Rhoads, publisher and founder of Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air Magazine, here every single day at 12 noon. Weekdays, you can find it on Facebook or YouTube. Just search Streamline Art Video. And if you're new to us, we have a publication called American Watercolor. You can subscribe free. It's a weekly, edited by Kelly Kane. And just go to americanwatercolor.net and /subscribe. Okay. Thanks for watching today, guys. And I will see you tomorrow. And thanks again to Andy. Bye-bye.